All right, mercy. What is mercy? I mean, start with the easy questions, right? I don't know if we have a quick definition of that, because grace is unmerited favor, right? Like we've got some of those that we got. Do we have one for mercy? I don't. What does it imply? Like, let's say you have two people, right? Someone give me an example of mercy. How about that? Can we do that? Or is that even harder? How about we just think about this? You have two people, and one person is showing mercy to the other person. What does that imply about the two people involved in this? Like, how would you describe a general situation like that? Yeah, James.
Well, I would just say general definition. You're withholding something that somebody deserves. Typically, we would think about something negative like punishment or something punitive. So you're deciding to withhold it even though they have done something that would warrant said punishment or behavior.
Yeah, I think that one of the quick ways to look at that is the kind of, and Michael mentioned this Sunday night, like the mercy of the court, right? You fall upon the mercy of the court. You are in a situation where you're guilty of something, you are facing consequence for that, and you ask for mercy because of it. And so we think about it in this kind of maybe legalistic situation or in a place where there's something that you deserve, and you want that punishment that you would otherwise receive to be alleviated in some way. I think that's a way that we look at mercy a lot, yeah.
The publican and the Pharisee, the contrast between them. The publican said, "Be merciful to me, a sinner." He didn't have the audacity to look up to heaven. So he's very humble, and he's not asking for what he deserves. He wants mercy.
Yeah. And I think that's a great example of that, right? And it shows the contrast between two people and your attitude towards your circumstance. One thinks that they deserve something that they don't, and the other one recognizes what they deserve and is asking not to receive it. It's a fascinating kind of story there, the humbling of yourself before God, the plea for mercy that's there. What about, is it always a case where it's something that you deserve? Could you receive mercy even if it isn't that you deserve something else? Like, for instance, yeah, go ahead. Yeah. Right. Right. Yeah, and maybe in that case you could still say, well, they deserve to have to get like beat down even more. So maybe but it isn't the same sort of punitive sort of definition, right? It's this like alleviating of something, some sort of pressure, right? Like we're not going to make you suffer through this any longer. As a sports fan, you know, there are always those circumstances where you just are watching a game and you just think, just let it end, right? Like just mercy rule us, like put us out of our misery. Now, as I've gotten older, really since COVID, I think COVID killed my sports watching habits because it was weird and it wasn't on TV. And then I was like, I don't have time to go back to that. But, you know, up until then, you know, you felt like you had to be a good fan, like you have to watch to the end. And so you're just watching your team lose and they get beat worse and worse and it just gets worse. Like I remember watching Florida State play Oregon in the Rose Bowl years ago, and it would just, the pain and the agony, right? Like that's enough to make you quit watching sports right there. And if you want sport, and so you just want the mercy, right? Just let it end. Just end it. And I think there's that element of mercy that we have, not just in sports, not just in the court system, but just in life in general, right? That there is somebody who has power over us in some way, and we want them to show kindness as opposed to maybe vitriol or anger or power, right? I mean, I guess I was trying to debate this in my mind. I can't remember. Like growing up, like we'd wrestle, you know, we'd play rough 'em up with my dad, and we'd wrestle, or you go to like an uncle's house and we'd wrestle a lot. And I don't know, I wonder if I'm like failing as a parent that I don't do that with my kids more, that we've never wrestled. You know, I've never put them in the figure four, and I don't know. But, you know, thing, maybe it's because I have two girls, I don't know. But like growing up, that was a big thing. And you're wrestling somebody, and then they get you and they pin you and they say uncle or mercy, right? Like call for mercy, right? Like, otherwise I'm going to keep you here. And you're like, never, right? And then you fight away. Then it's like you're completely subdued and fight like mercy, mercy, right? It's like you watch UFC fighting or something, right? And the guy gets him in a hold and he's got him pinned down and he's like, tap, tap. He's like, no. He's like, tap, right? And then he's like, fine, like, I don't want to get hurt. So like you tap out, right? Like you call for mercy, right? Like, don't break my arm, right? Like this is enough. I've been beaten, right? Like tap out. Like, I think that's a big part of this element of the idea of mercy. Like whether we deserve it or not, like, right, there's this element of somebody in power over somebody else, and this person is pleading the person who has authority to give them mercy, to not do what they can, but to show kindness maybe instead. Yeah. Yeah, that there's something, that this idea that we're talking about mercy, it isn't just an act, right? What we're talking about or trying to have is a characteristic, like a personality trait. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's like incredible when you see that, right? That like something bad happens and you're like, oh, this is somebody else. And they just are like, it's fine. Don't worry about it, right? They show mercy as opposed to vitriol or demanding some sort of recompense that you may otherwise owe them. You let somebody borrow something and they break it, and you're like, oh man, I'm sorry I broke it. And they're like, pay me back what you owe, right? Or you say, it's okay, like I'll take care of it. Like mercy versus callousness, mercy versus punishment, mercy versus vitriol. Like there's a lot of words, because mercy can be a lot of things. There's a lot of words that are the opposite of mercy, and most of them are fairly harsh or exacting, right? I mean, I keep having this image pop up in my head when I was thinking about mercy of going before a king, right? And I don't know what the situation is. I don't know if it's, that you've done something wrong necessarily, but maybe your farmland burned down, right? And you don't have any food to eat for the winter because there was like a terrible fire and you were affected. And so you go to the king and you're like, please have mercy on me. Like, provide for me out of your abundance so that my family can eat through the winter because our crops were destroyed, whatever, right? And in whatever the situation is, you think about this king and this person that's in charge. And I keep imagining Nebuchadnezzar, maybe just because he is very kingly, powerful. But like whatever it is, like you have this king on a throne, right? And they look down and there's this person whose life they hold in the palm of their hand, right? Like, what should I do with you, right? Shall I feed you? Shall I give you of my abundance? Shall I allow you to prosper despite your haphazardness and the fact that you burn down your own food, right? What should I do here, right? And you can just imagine this person sitting on their throne, looking down at somebody, trying to figure out, what am I going to do in this situation? How am I going to handle it, right? Because they have all authority and power. They are the king. They are the monarch. And here's this puny little individual. How am I going to treat them? What am I going to do? And so it's a situation like that where you see mercy, right? Because the king could say, no, that's your problem. You deal with it, right? They could say, no, you paid your taxes to me, and I have to be responsible for all the people. I can't just going around giving food out, whatever it is, whether it's burned down food, whatever. the king could just say no. And that's their right, isn't it? Because they are in charge, and this person is begging them for mercy. And so, like, I think that's an interesting way to kind of frame the conversation of mercy, because you're clearly putting somebody up here and somebody else down here. And if you're asking for mercy, you are fundamentally lowering yourself to somebody else because you're giving them control over you, right? To say, show me mercy, you are acknowledging that they are in control and they have power over you, and you need them to help you. And so it's a humbling thing to ask for mercy. I mean, I was trying to think about it, and you don't have to answer this. Maybe it's more a rhetorical question. Like, have you ever actually asked somebody specifically for mercy? Like, have you used that term and said, please be merciful to me? Maybe God, right? I think we pray for mercy to God over our sins or over our circumstances or whatever. But just in general, I don't know that I hear people going around saying, like, show me mercy, right? Because it's maybe it's just a word that we don't use in our everyday language. Maybe there's lots of reasons. But I think part of it, at least, is because it is a lowering of yourself in relation to somebody else. And so it's a big deal. You're giving control of a situation over to somebody else as opposed to having the upper hand. But then you also are acknowledging then that somebody has power and the ability to do something. Okay, so that's kind of the, I think, framework maybe for the idea of mercy. Because then we get these proverbs. And we'll start with maybe the less interesting ones, perhaps. Proverbs 21:21. We're going to save the really, really exciting stuff. I don't know that any of them are really that exciting. I think they're all valuable, but it's not like there's something that's going to be like, whoa, it says that? All right, Proverbs 21:21 says, whoever pursues righteousness and kindness will find life, righteousness, and honor. So the first question is, the word mercy is not here. So why this proverb in relation to the concept of mercy? The kindness word, I think, is a big part of that. Righteousness fits in, but particularly the kindness, I think, right? Why? Why kindness in relation to mercy? What do kindness and mercy have in common? Yeah, is it a kindness? Bad example maybe, but we'll just run with it. Hopefully it demonstrates the point. Is it like, would you say, wow, you are so kind if you are eating lunch with somebody, both of you are fairly well-to-do, and you pick up the bill? And they're like, no, they're like, I got it this time. Would you be like, wow, that's a super kind individual, right? I mean, yeah, it's kind of a nice thing to do. But I don't think we'd be blown away. Like, that's like a fairly normal, and then the next time the other guy may try and do it. It's like, well, no, he's really kind, right? But like, you're just doing a normal sort of thing. But would we say it's a kindness if you're walking down the street and you see a guy who's dirty and you like take him into Subway and you buy him a sandwich? I think we would say that that's much more kind than the first example. And it isn't that we have to like categorize kindness necessarily, but I think it's to demonstrate this similarity in relational, right? Like, I think we see kindness much more when you are doing something for somebody who can't do it back, right? Which implies that there's a little bit of a status separation there, just like there would be with mercy. I think it's a similar idea in that way, that like we would look at a kindness as something that you are doing out of the goodness of your heart that you're not going to receive back, right? That you are a kind, generous person, right? And I think that we would look at mercy similarly. And so I think that these two words all frame the same principles, don't they? And in fact, we would look at righteousness maybe the same way as well, that you are going to do the right thing no matter the circumstances, right? I don't think that we would say that righteousness is, I think we would say that righteousness is best displayed when you do the right thing in spite of the consequences or benefits of it, right? Like we would say that somebody is very righteous when they are honest, even when that honesty is going to hurt them. I don't know that we would say that somebody is particularly righteous when they tell the truth when it benefits them, right? Like, I mean, it's like after a football game, right? Would we say that it is a particularly righteous individual who, when asked by the reporter, says, say they're a quarterback, they're like, well, technically that receiver ran the wrong route. And so I threw the ball where it was supposed to be and he broke out as opposed to in. That's why it was intercepted. Is that righteousness? I don't think anybody would describe, but he's telling the truth, right? As opposed to if you threw the ball in the wrong place and you told the truth, we would say, well, that's more righteousness because that hurts you. And so I think what we're seeing with all these words and what I'm trying to articulate is that whether it's mercy, righteousness, kindness, that a big element of this and the way it's demonstrated is when it actually has a consequence to us or at least no benefit. And that's when you truly exhibit these sorts of characteristics. Which is why verse 21 says, whoever pursues righteousness and kindness, right? It isn't something that you just display haphazardly when the moment suits you. It's something that you actively are pursuing to be and to demonstrate in your life. I think that's the idea. Does that make sense? Was there a hand? Did I miss a hand? Yeah. 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 Yeah, I think that there is this element of putting other people first in all of this. At least certainly it's not putting yourself first, right? And I think that we would categorize these words and the demonstration of them when you are pursuing them and doing them when it's not most beneficial to yourself. Like I figured this out in high school. And I think I may have used this example before. But like if a teacher graded a test and they gave me credit for an answer that I actually got wrong, I figured out that it was much to my benefit to go to the teacher and tell them that they misgraded the test, because I think every single time but once, and this happened all the time in high school, by the way. Maybe it says something about the quality of the teachers I had. I don't know. But happened all the time, and I would go to them and I'd tell them, and every single time, except for once, they would say, oh, well, thank you so much for your honesty. I really appreciate it. I'll just go ahead and give you credit for that since you were being so honest. And I figured that out pretty quick, that was what was going to happen. So am I being like this good, honest student going forward? Well, no, because I know that the teacher's now going to think higher of me for being more honest when I know that they're too lazy to go change the grade in the computer because they've already submitted it. So like I'm only gaining here, right? Like this isn't some like great act of righteousness. And I knew it. Like it isn't just like I was ignorant of this, right? That's the problem, is I was fully aware that this was going to happen. Now, I was willing to take the docket, on my grade if necessary, but I was shocked that one time the teacher did it. And actually, I think he only did it because I told him like 6 times. It was the same teacher. Every single test, he would misgrade him. Yeah, that guy, he was my psychology professor or teacher. And it's one of those cases where it's like, oh, he got a degree to figure himself out, right? Like that was what was going on there. Anyway. Go ahead, Ian. No, the high school, right. Yeah. Yeah, he does teach psychology. Maybe there's a reason where I got that degree too. I don't know. Yeah, and I think your point is right. That just because we may, in our communication with each other, highlight righteousness when it is something that is particularly righteous because it may have consequence, I do think you're right, and that's really the point of the proverb, right? That you pursue these things, that you're always chasing them, that you're going after them. Pursuit, I think, is a kind of powerful action word here, isn't it? That this is something that you're seeking and going after. You're training for, you're preparing for. And I think that that's right, that this is something that becomes a part of who we are. Let's go to Proverbs 19. Proverbs 19:22. I just realized that I had ordered these in interest level, and it turns out that they are also chronological. So we're doing reverse chronological. So maybe it's just that I read them first, and I was like, oh, this is great. And then they got repetitive, and so I put in, I don't know. Anyway, Proverbs 19:22 says, what is desired in a man is steadfast love, and a poor man is better than a liar. Is there anything interesting to you all in the way that this is worded? I think what's interesting is the way it says what is desired in a man. Like, if you were, maybe a silly way to put it, but like, I remember years and years ago, like in high school, you talk with your buddies about like, what's the perfect girl like, right? And you start listing the things. And most of them were probably physical, if we're honest, when you're a 16-year-old boy. A little bit ashamed about that maybe. But, you start listing these characteristics, right? These things that you desire, right? And a girl, I was like, well, I want her to be really funny. She's got to be funny, right? Got to be this way. Got to have this. I think it's interesting to think about that context and the way that this is worded. Not necessarily like in terms of like spousal or like a relationship in that way, but what do you desire in a man? Like if you're going to build like the ultimate human, what do you desire? Like what are the characteristics, right? Like if you were going to build the perfect basketball player, right? You'd probably say like 6'10", 7 foot. You might just describe LeBron James, right? Like 6'9", 260, runs like a gazelle, jumps out of the gym, stronger than everybody, right? Like somebody like that. Like you have like a physique. Like what's the going to build the perfect wide receiver? You'd probably say Calvin Johnson, right? Like that guy was built like the perfect wide receiver. And you go down the line, right? Like there's like these traits that you would categorize, but just in general, if you were going to like write what you desire or like what should exist in a human, what are the things that you would list? Because he lists here steadfast love. And I think that's interesting to kind of think about it maybe in that category. Like what are the great qualities of a human that you should have? He says steadfast love. I don't know that would have been on my bingo card, right? I don't know that would be in my top 5 things. Like you might say, funny, smart, you want to be honest, right? But steadfast love in particular, I think is an interesting way to word that or to include there. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, right. Right. You might say steadfast, but I don't even know that we would typically add in the qualifier of kindness or love here, right? Like we would just say steadfast, right? Like what was the movie Master and Commander? There's like the guy who's like mute and he has steadfast tattooed across his knuckles because they're like in the storm and they're like pulling down the sails and it says like steadfast. It's like, oh man, I don't know. Maybe nobody saw that movie. This is okay, I guess. I didn't think it did a very good job of representing the British Navy, but it was entertaining, so it's fine. But like it's just like we like would admire the idea of steadfastness, but steadfast to the idea of kindness or love, like that's not something maybe as Christians that we would value, but as a world, as a society, as people, Like, that's not high on the list of characteristics that people should have, is it? To be merciful, steadfastly merciful. To be steadfastly kind. That no matter what else is going on, that you are going to show kindness, right? Like, that's not the way that people talk, is it? Yeah, Ian. Yeah, that's a great comment. So let's think about this. Maybe I think we can look at our world, society, as a way of looking at this. We live in a postmodern world. It's like the fun thing that people like to say. Or, in other words, there is no truth, right? Everybody talks about your truth. Like, you have to speak your truth, or you have to listen to my truth, or this is my truth. Well, that's your truth, but that's not my truth. And they use this kind of language to try and talk about the way that things exist, right? And that everything is personalized and not objective. That you and I can't relate because this is my truth and that's your truth. And that's essentially postmodernism, right? That there's no steadfast standard. There's no thing that we all agree on, that we're bound together by. It's all just your perception and my perception. And some of us may have the same perception, but that doesn't even mean that we're necessarily the same. It's just the way that we see things, right? Like, and I bring that up because if there is no truth, right? Honesty, right? Like, what is honesty? It's an adherence to fact. It's an adherence to what is true, to what exists. And if you erase the concept of truth and you erase the concept of things that are honest, just in general, then you are left with like our modern world, right? Okay, let me see if I can give an example of this. Hopefully this works. So, like, I really like Disney, right? We take our kids to Disney World, grew up watching a lot of Disney movies. They're great, right? Great kids movies. But I think we all are aware that Disney has a lot of problems, right? Like, they do all their immoral gay pride stuff. They have like all these things that I think we as conservatives would look at and be very distraught with. Disney as a company, I think even to this day, tries very hard to be a steadfastly loving company towards people. I think that's their goal. I think their goal is to be accepting of everyone, to be kind to everyone. Like, that's their pretense. That's the way that they show themselves. And so they have this effort of inclusion. But here's the problem, right, that Disney has. Disney, if they release something that's immoral, they get in trouble, right, because it's immoral. And their primary base are families with children, which tend to be more conservative. And they say, we don't want to see that. We don't like that stuff. We don't want that to be in our home, right? And so they get in trouble. And they're like, oh, boy, now what are we going to do? But on the other hand, if they say, oh, Jimmy Kimmel, we have to suspend you for like a day because you said something that was wrong, then everybody on the other side gets mad at them and says, you can't do that because now you're just bending to the knee of whoever, right? So like Disney's in this place where on both sides, people are angry with them all the time. Why is that the case? Because they don't believe in anything as a company other than some vague idea of love, which I think is what you see as the problem in society, right? There is no truth. There is no standard or basis by which to evaluate anything. I mean, there was the CEO of United Healthcare got shot in the street, and people literally, not people that I know necessarily, but people on TV talked about how great it was, that the guy deserved it. Like, that's like a common thing that existed in the world, right? Like, publicly, people saying that. And it's like, is murder not bad anymore? And to a lot of people, it isn't because, well, in this case, it's okay because I framed the world in such a way. And so you end up in a place where there is no truth, there is no honesty, and because of that, there is no consistency. which is akin to lying, right? So like you talk to somebody and you don't know what they're going to say, and you don't know if you can believe them because they're untrustworthy. And so the farther society moves away from having any sort of standard or basis of truth, the more they become like liars, the more fickle they become, the more inconsistent they become. Which then goes back to Ian's question. That's why what is desired in a man is steadfast love rather than a liar, right? Because you have on the one hand this wishy-washy, vague perception of reality versus somebody who is constant, who's steadfast, who is sure, and dedicated specifically to the concept of love or kindness or mercy. Yeah. Right. Yeah, I think all that's really well said. And I think it's really at the core of the difficulty here as humans to deal with this stuff, right? Like, so kind of going back to the analogy, why is something like postmodernism popular? Like, why would anybody agree to that? Well, because it allows for their own independence to do what they want, to decide what they want, whoever they want, and to feel good about it. As opposed to having to acknowledge that maybe there is some other standard by which they should be evaluated in which they're wrong. And that's not comfortable. That's not pleasant. And so, I mean, this idea of then a mercy is one in which you are being selfless in providing for somebody else's needs. Like the king who's going to give the food to the guy who had his farm burned down. He's giving out of his food for this person. And what does he gain back? Right? Maybe a more loyal subject. Maybe you could fit, but like generally speaking, like this peasant doesn't mean anything to the king. He doesn't need loyalty. He's the king. Right? And so like this idea is like of giving and being merciful, of providing is something of selflessness. Yeah.
I was going to say, part of the issue would be, postmodern is it's not popular if you evaluate it to the end result. If you expose what exactly occurs when you deny truth, it's actually a mercy to pursue truth. It's merciful sometimes to tell a person a hard truth. If part of our problem with our society is that we are so worried sometimes about offending people that we won't say things that need to be said, even if to just a friend or something. I'm not going to get into specifics, but I have criticized some of Ramon's friends for not being honest with an individual in their friend group. And it's not merciful what they're doing, because they are sabotaging their friend to prevent them from, things. I mean, I don't want to get into details because we know what I'm talking about, because I'm too weird. But the whole point, though, is I'm just talking about a very small, simple situation. And of course, you can extend this to society as a whole.
not being merciful. Of course, and I think that's why the liar is the point. You can't love somebody and lie to them. You are fundamentally not showing love. And I'm not talking about occasionally saying something, not trampling on somebody's feelings so it makes a deal or something. It's 8 out of 10 instead of a 10 out of 10, whatever. But when it gets down to the more important things, which is what I'm talking about here, we need to be honest, even if sometimes it's hard to say that. And I think that's a good reason why this is juxtaposed next to each other with love and the poor man can still show that as well. That's why he would still be better.
Yeah, I think all that's well said. And I think you're exactly right that there's an obligation, depending on your relationship with somebody, to tell them what needs to be done so they can correct things. I mean, as a manager, previously a manager, you have emails going around about somebody who did something wrong. There's all the emails going around, people complaining about the person, and then you say, has anybody told him? And it's silence. So you call the guy and you say, hey, did you know you weren't supposed to do that? He said, no, nobody ever told me. I said, well, I'm telling you, don't do that, right? But now everybody thinks that he's the bad guy because they'd rather complain about him rather than train him up and teach him. And it's the sort of thing that you're talking about. This idea of mercy isn't necessarily avoiding consequence. Sometimes it is merciful to provide some consequence. But generally speaking, this whole idea of mercy is then something that we inhabit. So let's go to number 1 on my list. Chapter 3, verse 3. We'll look at this briefly and then hopefully be able to sum up quickly a couple takeaways. Proverbs 3:3, let not steadfast love and faithfulness forsake you. Bind them around your neck. Write them on the tablet of your heart. Now, the Bible uses language quite a bit, particularly in the New Testament, of clothing, right? Be further clothed, put on Christ, right? This idea of what you cover yourself with. And that's kind of the idea here with the binding around your neck and writing on the tablet of your heart, that these are things that you are clothing yourself with that are a part of who you are, that you're taking with you. And you take that with you all the time, and it's the idea of pursuit, it's all these other things, but it's something that is who you are, that you are clothed in, that you are somebody who is full of steadfast love and faithfulness, and you embody mercy, right? And it isn't just sometimes, it isn't just when the mood strikes you, it's who you are. As much as your face is yours, right? It is your face. I mean, they even do Face ID on your phone now, right? To unlock your phone because that's your face. It's not anybody else's. It's your fingerprint, right? Your fingerprint belongs to you. That's the idea here. This is you. This isn't just something else. This is bound to who you are. It's written on the tablet of your heart. You are embodying these characteristics. You take them with you all the time. And the reason why that's so important, to quickly sum up, is because that's who God is, isn't it? The reason why we are merciful is because God has shown us mercy. And so one, just from basic moral, conscience sake, somebody shows mercy to you, you should pass that mercy on. I think we understand that. Most humans would understand that on some level. Some quid pro quo there. But more than that, this is who God is, and if our desire is to be with God, then we must be like God. And so we embody the character of God because we value him and who he is, and we see the benefits of it, and we want others to see those same things as well, right? Shining your light, right? A city set on a hill can't be hidden, that whole thing. That you embody those characteristics of God, and you cast that light around you so that other people see it as well. And it goes back to David's point as well, right, about the importance of mercy and what mercy may or may not look like in certain contexts, but the importance of showing that and exposing that to people so they can understand, so they can grow, so they can change, so they can see that there is something valuable to embody, that they can take on and clothe and see God's characteristic in that way as well. And of course, the ultimate example of that is Jesus dying on the cross. God is the one sitting on the throne, right? He's the one sitting on the throne, looking at the poor peasant beggars who are sitting there sniffling because they're hungry and thirsty and can't do anything for themselves. And he said, I'll take care of it, right? That's the image here. We are ultimately the farmer who burned down his own crops and has to go plead to the king for some food. Like, that's who we are. And God said in his mercy, okay, I'll give you the food that you need. And so then that becomes part of the Proverbs, that we are merciful then and kind. So appreciate your attention, comments tonight. Hopefully that was encouraging, helpful.